Jonathan Mogbo, the 31st overall pick by the Toronto Raptors, he's been steadily trying to find his place on the roster. Now, his rookie campaign has been a classic tale of ups and downs thus far. Growth, not without its pains. From being a steady contributor for an injury-riddled team through his first 3 months in the NBA, to effectively being out of Toronto's rotation by the end of December. As the team got healthy and veterans were put on display, Mogbo's playing time hit rock bottom in January when he appeared in just 3 games and averaged less than 10 minutes in each of them. Rather than continuing to ride the bench, however, the Raptors decided to send him down to the G League to keep working on his game, which was clearly a specific priority for his development, considering that of Toronto's drafted rookies, it was Mogbo who spent the most time with the 905. Now, if you fast forward to February, a lot has changed for the 23-year-old. The Raptors said goodbye to a couple of those handy vets and doubled down on opportunities for their youngsters. All the while, along with Mogbo's minutes going up, so did his production. Now, after a month in the G League, he came back a bit more confident in the type of player he's to be for the Raptors and what he can offer the team. So I wanted to look at what Mogbo learned with the 905, where he stands currently, and what's next for him. But before we get into it, hi, I'm Zulfi Sheikh with Raptors Republic. If you could please like this video, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, it would make sure you don't miss any of the great content from Raptors Republic, covering both the Raptors and the Raptors 905. A lot of time and efforts goes into our content, so we just want to make sure it reaches as many people as possible. But with that being said, let's get into the video. To give you a snapshot of Jonathan Mogbo's time in the G League, he played 12 regular season games throughout the month of January, where he averaged 12 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, with a steal and a block while playing around 30 minutes a night. By the way, that was the second most of any player on the 905, behind only AJ Lawson. And there were 2 main objectives for Jonathan Mogbo while he was in the G League. First, to reframe how he plays basketball, and second, it was to find his inner monster. And we'll talk about that second part in just a bit, but going back to reframing how he plays basketball. At the University of San Francisco, Mogbo was essentially a small ball 5. He was a springy big who could initiate a bit of offense and finish well at the rim. On defense, he was primarily defending against other bigs, both at the level or in drop coverage, with the occasional switch onto the perimeter and into space. The Raptors, however, want to develop Mogbo away from being a small ball center and into a big wing. Head coach Darko Rajakovic has admitted as much, and aside from the whole Vision 6'9" of it all, it's easy to see why. Mogbo's twitchy and mobile, he has solid footwork, and just A++ length to use on the perimeter, whether it's straight up, in switches, or on a dig as a help defender. He has an over 9-foot standing reach and 7.2-foot wingspan, both of which were third amongst forwards at last year's draft combine. He's also got a great motor, and he excels in the open court by using some pretty awesome speed. He had the 5th fastest 3/4 court sprint of anyone at the combine last year. Now, another reason why the Raptors want to tweak his playstyle is that his rim finishing likely won't scale to the NBA at the level it was at in college. Mogbo was a 96th percentile finisher at the rim when he was at USF, finding plenty of success both as a cutter and a roll man. And he had absolutely no trouble finishing with force either, as he was second in all of the NCAA for total dunks. By the way, those stats were courtesy of Synergy, but they came by way of Josh Codenera's scouting report of Jonathan Mogbo. He's an awesome scout who guys like Samson and S have spoken very highly of, so I will link his work down in the description, so please be sure to check it out. Going back to Mogbo, in the NBA he's been average at best, both as a cutter and a roll man. At least efficiency-wise, and honestly that's probably being a bit generous. Going up against bigger and stronger and smarter defenders at the rim have led to some real struggles finishing for the rookie. Now again, Jonathan Mogbo is listed at 6'9", but he's more like 6'7" with shoes on. And he's shooting 61% at the rim this season, which is sub 20th percentile according to Cleaning the Glass. And while at the end of the day, Mogbo will just have to be better at converting up close as his career progresses, it feels like the Raptors are trying to alleviate some of those growing pains by moving him away from the basket a little bit. In order to do that, however, especially in a modern NBA offense, he has to be able to keep defenses honest. And the easiest way to go about that is being able to shoot, even if it's just a little bit. Now, Mogbo's a lot of fun when he's getting downhill and at speed, obviously, but when teams are able to just pack the paint against him or go into a drop coverage, things muck up pretty quick. Now, the hope is that way down the line, he's able to add a push shot to be able to punish defenses and how they respond to him. But in the meantime, simply being able to make them pay more attention to him when he is behind the three-point line is a solid way to start. Which is why, with the 905, they moved him from primarily working in the high post or in the elbow areas like he did while he was at college, to working out of the corners. And they told him to shoot the ball, because at the end of the day, you won't get better unless you're, well, shooting the ball. And that uptick was noticeable. Efficiency aside, just the fact that the volume had gone up was a positive step, because mind you, Jonathan Mogbo took all of 2 threes throughout his collegiate career. So while going 8 for 20 in the G League isn't eye-popping stuff, it builds confidence in his jumper, and the results of that were evident. Before going down to the G League, Mogbo shot a total of 25 threes in the NBA through his first 3 months, and he had just 5 games out of 35 where he attempted more than 1 3. Now with the 905, he not only hit at a 40% clip on his attempts, he attempted 2 or more threes in 5 out of 12 games. And then he comes back to an NBA rotation, and that willingness to shoot is noticeable. Through 13 games since rejoining the Raptors rotation, Mogbo has attempted 23 threes. So in less than half the amount of time, he's attempted almost just as many threes that he did in his first 3 months. In 6 of his last 13 games, he's attempted at least 2 threes, again compared to 5 out of his first 35. And look, admittedly, his 3-point percentage has dipped a touch with the increased volume, but in the important areas like the corners where he's primarily being asked to shoot out of, he has shot a respectable 36% in February. And I understand he's not exactly moving mountains here, but it's definitely a building block for the rookie, which is what the Raptors are hoping for. And with each game, defenses are starting to react a bit more, even if it's ever so slightly. From more or less having their backs turned or sagging all the way off, to now sometimes turning around, occasionally stepping up, and once in a while, even closing out. And that's a pathway for Mogbo to create those opportunities for him to get downhill, to build momentum, and to make more use of that awesome strength and athleticism. Now in stationary positions, he loses a lot of pop, but when he is in motion and able to leverage his momentum, that's when he starts being able to make a difference towards the basket. It's part of why you see him try to slip on screen so often now, because he's able to keep moving and attack within a flow. The numbers seem to suggest it's made a difference as well. Again, these are small increases, but the uptick in 3-point volume has coincided with his field goal efficiency in both the restricted area and the paint going up in February compared to where he was at through his first 3 months of the season. He seems to be responding to how opponents are defending him and countering and reacting accordingly. Look, I understand there's a lot of room for growth for Jonathan Mogbo on the offensive end, but seeing as it is year 1, being able to add confidence to his jump shot like he appears to have throughout his G League stint, I think is a positive step for him nonetheless. Now going back to this idea of reframing how he has to play, Jonathan Mogbo's time in the G League also made a difference on his defensive capabilities. On that side of the ball, it was all about the point of attack and getting reps on the perimeter. It was about guarding on the ball, often taking the opposition's number 1 option. And again, we've seen how disruptive Jonathan Mogbo can be in the NBA. If you look at him in switch situations, he's often a menace, and even if he is a step slow, his incredible length often has allowed him to make up that space when contesting. To give you a snapshot of Jonathan Mogbo's experience in the G League, some of the players he had to spend time guarding, again primarily, included the likes of Malachi Flynn, who Raptors fans obviously know very well, J.D. Davison, who was a G League All-Star this past season. He was actually at NBA All-Star Weekend with the G League squad. And then there was Killian Hayes. He's a former 7th overall pick who's no slouch as he just earned his way back to the NBA and he's playing some pretty good basketball with Brooklyn. These are all talented ball handlers who, at least at the G League level, are super dynamic players. And look, it wasn't a flawless experience. There was times where Jonathan Mogbo did get beat, especially early in this experience, especially when he was flat-footed. But that wasn't really the point. It was all about getting those reps, and once he started to understand how to go about defending on the perimeter more consistently, those possessions started changing. Mogbo began anticipating better, he was able to navigate screens with more comfort, he was cutting off driving lanes, and being able to beat players to spots more often, and that was when his elite size was starting to make a real impact. In his time with the 905, only Ulrich Shamshay had a better defensive rating than Jonathan Mogbo. He was second on the team for steals, blocks, and he was also fourth for total win shares. Look, it's evident that Toronto has a vision for how they want to be able to maximize Jonathan Mogbo in the future, and that has to do with being able to work along the perimeter. And I think they know, and we know, that it's not going to always be pretty. But look, for every ill-advised foul you may get from Jonathan Mogbo, like he had against Tyler Hero in overtime, there's also situations like this. He's able to close out and contest against Jalen Brunson, and then leak out in transition. And at this point, Jonathan Mogbo has more than proven he's worth betting on, at least at the defensive end of the floor. Because while Mogbo is no supercomputer, he's an exceptional processor of information in real time. And the numbers back it up too. Since he's returned to the Raptors rotation, he's had the 5th best defensive rating on the team. And I know I'm talking about defense, but I just love to show this example here to show how Jonathan Mogbo processes information in real time, even though it is on the offensive end. This play against the Long Island Nets, you just look at the timing with which he reacts. Once he sees the lane clear out and his player kind of drag the defender with him, it is within a split second that he reacts and starts driving to the basket for his attack. And I think that just speaks to the way he's able to process information at speed, which is why I believe the more data he has to work with, which in his case are reps and experience, the sharper he'll be able to react moving forward. It's what he seems to have gotten out of most of his G League experience, and honestly what the Raptors probably hoped for him as soon as he rejoined the rotation. If it weren't for a couple of injuries like to Jakob Poeltl that derailed some of that, as Darko Rajakovic has previously pointed out, the goal was to get him as many wing reps as possible down the stretch. And quite honestly, I expect plenty more of that experimenting moving forward should health allow it. Now on to the second part, this idea of Jonathan Mogbo needing to find his inner monster. If you followed his career throughout the NBA to any degree, you probably know a common theme when coaches have been asked about his play is this idea that Mogbo needs to be more aggressive, rely on his instincts more, and not think his way out of opportunities. Or, as Coach Drew Jones of the 905 simply put it, he needs to find his inner monster. Now, when I asked Coach what exactly that meant, he explained it as Mogbo needing to just play free, not think, and allow his instincts, his length, his athleticism to make plays, because when he does that, he's incredible. And Coach also mentioned that they're empowering him to be aggressive, to attack, using his length and his physicality to be disruptive, because when he is doing those things, he's impactful no matter what. And while that hardly seems like an issue for Mogbo when you see him flying around in transition and barreling through players, in the half court it was, and still is, a different story. In the G League, Mogbo converted his 21 transition opportunities at a 67% clip, compared to just 37% of his offense in the half court. Now if you look at his NBA numbers, and it's a similar story. It's 56% conversion in transition and 42% in the half court. And then unsurprisingly, the Raptors' half-court offense is 3.8 points per 100 possessions worse when Mogbo is on the floor. And to the coaching staff's point, at least some of that goes back to Jonathan Mogbo lacking the confidence to turn more of his self-created moves into shot opportunities. Because let's be honest, if I asked you to raise your hand if you've seen Mogbo do this thing where he drives middle, stops himself, pivots again, and then passes the ball out, you'd all likely be raising your hands right now. Which seems like another reason why the Raptors are trying to move Jonathan Mogbo away from the basket a little bit. It looks like they're trying to find more favorable matchups where he can kind of attack consistently and play with that edge we've seen from time to time. Because when he has had favorable opposition, we've seen glimpses where that monster starts to bare its teeth. He starts initiating contact, he starts rising over players, and he shows that strength that we know is there for him to use. And look, for what it's worth, I think there have been some positive indicators. In the G League, for instance, where Mogbo was almost exclusively operating as a wing player, there were signs of more self-creation, which I do think speaks to a bit of that idea of confidence. Only about 55% of Mogbo's makes were assisted, whereas compared to the NBA, it's at 76%. There was also simply just some clear plays where I looked at them and I was like, that's it. Something clicked and Mogbo showed that monster. Against the Valley Suns, for instance, there was a play where Mogbo tried to back down his defender into the basket. It kind of reminded me of when Scotty Barnes did that against Jeremy Sohan against the Spurs a year ago. Or there was this play against the Westchester Knicks. Mogbo basically flicked his defender off like he was a bug and then barreled in for a strong dunk. Those moments were few and far between, however, because when there was a defender where it didn't seem like Mogbo had a 110% chance of outmuscling, a lot of that juice seemed to go away. Now, I watched every single one of Jonathan Mogbo's offensive possessions, both in the NBA and the G League, and almost without fail, when there was a mid to small defender, there was a heightened level of aggression that was noticeable compared to when there was a bigger defender and there was a size mismatch in favor of the opposition. Even in transition, which is a clear comfort zone for Jonathan Mogbo, his position, and by virtue of the players he would be running up and down against, made a difference on his impact on the fast break. According to Clean the Glass, when Mogbo was listed as a power forward, the Raptors were 3.4 points per 100 possessions better in transition, compared to 0.6 points per 100 possessions worse when he was listed as a center. And look, forget about this idea of initiating contact. There's times where he summarily tries to avoid it when he's not certain it'll work, which is a bit of a shame considering Jonathan Mogbo has some pretty exceptional footwork for a player at his size, and at least in the open court, there is a crafty dribble there with a left to right cross. It takes this idea of million-dollar moves and very quickly turns them into 10-cent finishes, as our own Louis Zatzman wrote earlier on RaptorsRepublic.com, which I will link in the description as well. Now look, beyond the rim finishing, the shooting, or even the idea that Mogbo could add craft in the mid-range, if I had to choose a make or break factor for his success moving down the line, it would be his ability to tap into that monster on a nightly basis. Because when it is present, it is loud and it makes a difference. Just ask Jamison Battle. Or, at least I did, and he told me that when Mogbo is playing that way, it seems like he's playing very naturally to his game, and it provides a presence for the team. And it's funny because when I asked a Jameson Battle about this, he laughed and he said that Mogbo actually doesn't like being called a monster, but when he is playing like that, it's showing a belief in his abilities and it's a confidence that shows growth in him as a player. And look, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure at this point how Mogbo is going to tap into that monster on a nightly basis. It may take him looking at a full moon, it may take the Raptors having to read up on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or it could simply be Mogbo tightening up his dribble and developing a push shot. And look, jokes aside, I do think the latter would make a difference. I think at least a bit of Mogbo's lack of confidence stems from his ball security issues that he's had from time to time. A handful of Mogbo's turnover come in the painted area when he's operating with a live dribble. Again, he's got this nifty left-right cross that we've seen, and it's worked on the perimeter and in space from time to time, but I feel like refining it and seeing it work in higher traffic areas would help more of those moves end with shot attempts. And there you have it. That is everything I was able to gather on Jonathan Mogbo's career to this point. Now, when I decided to dive into the tape, I didn't plan on it becoming some kind of State of the Union address when I was done. But I think it's worth highlighting both how much Jonathan Mogbo has grown as a player and how much room there is left to improve. And again, there are clear building blocks that have been laid down already, and I believe that is a testament to his time in the G League and the 905 system. This organization once hung its hat on developing talent through its farm, and after Masai and Bobby both preached about returning to that standard, Mogbo's growth is proof of concept of that being true. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like. That way, it's able to reach more and more people. And let me know in the comments below, what have you thought of Jonathan Mogbo's season to this point? And what do you want to see from the rookie moving forward? And if you have any thoughts on my video essay, please be sure to share them as well. This is my first time doing a piece like this, so I am open to any kind of feedback. But with that being said, please make sure to subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel. That way you're not missing out on any of the great content covering both the Raptors and Raptors 905. I'm Zulfi Sheikh. Peace.
Do you think your inner monsters come out today?
The monster's definitely coming out. I might not be able to like facially express it, but I'm trying to work on my expressions, but the monster's definitely here.